Hi Angie and everybody. I've been in front of the fireplace most of the day. It's mighty cold here in Tennessee today. Mighty cold here in Tennessee today. And I've been feeding the fireplace and quilting Tammy today. So a couple of tips, and I'm still learning at 62. So thanks to my senior center, which I'm going to tomorrow. And I meant to mention that if anybody has any scraps or crafts or material or anything like that, you can donate them to your local senior center, or even several churches have sewing groups or craft groups, and they make gifts for the shut-ins at nursing homes, etc. So just the thought, if it's just sitting around not being used. So here we go. We'll check out my 50-year-old sewing machine. Okay, here we are at well, I got to thinking it's probably more than 50 years old. It may be 60. My mother's Singer sewing machine. I remember when she bought it, and it comes with its cabinet that's maple, and it folds over to look like a desk when not in use, but it was always in use. So after 10 years, I decided I'm gonna oil up. I call her Marge because that's what I called my mom. She always had a hairdo in the morning like Marge Simpson. So anyway, I've sewed something for my daughter and been sewing ever since. But I was telling Angie about my little light. I just love it. I got it at Walmart. It is not cordless, but it's awesome, especially these dark, cold days. So, but this block and 4 others were found in a bag of scraps at the senior center that someone had donated, and none of us had the heart to tear them apart. So it just so happens that it's Christmas time, and they gave me, since I'm a beginning quilter, gave me the task of making a table runner. And I'm hoping whoever this belonged to will enjoy it, or at least know that it's been used and not scrapped. But anyway, the blocks were 9 by 9, and I've added a border on each side, which I'm going to add another white border strip. And there happened to be extra flying geese, which are these little triangles. They're square. These are 2 1/4 inch square with 2 different colors, and they're called flying geese. And I hated to tear them apart, so I've used those also as cornerstones. But this one will measure 42 inches long by 15 inches wide when it's finished. But I have been working on it all day, and what is funny is that I was getting ready to start a star pattern, and then I went to the senior center to our little sewing group on Monday, and she said, "Look what we found in the scraps." So enough of that. And all of the material is donated, and that is what I'm using. The white I had to go buy, so so far I've got $6 invested. This is the sashing that I'm putting on the bottom, and then we'll attach the next square. And that is 2 1/4 inches wide. And I am getting ready to sew these flying geese on one of the sash pieces for the last square. I'm using 3 of the squares as the table runner. And this little guy I use as my phone stand. We make those at the senior center too, and it's just rice and a good pattern and some polyfill, and it makes a great cell phone stand. So let's get sewing. Okay, after 15 minutes, I finally got the needle threaded again. Marge is probably telling me it's too late to be sewing, but we're gonna do it anyway. She goes at 1 speed, and it's not fast, which is fine with me. But after I get the second set of these flying geese sewn, this is what they look like on the end of a short sash. And you can even do just a plain piece of material different from what you're using to accent, but I will sew that on just in a straight line, and then that will add to that, and then the red sash will go on after that, and then the next block will be attached. And there's only 3 in this block, and I'm trying to get this done hopefully tomorrow. The girls will show me how to put the backing on, and the quilt, we use the low loft polyfill for washable projects. Quilts themselves, we use cotton quilt batting, and it's getting hard to find. So anyway, I'm gonna see if I can get Marge to finish up on these. Okay, and my fire is doing well. It's putting out some heat, and it's supposed to be 20 degrees tonight. So now that we have the geese ironed, or the geese sewn together, now we will iron the seams. And this is one of the finished blocks. That one's going to be the center block because there was no others without this pattern. So the reindeer are going to be on either end, and this one is going to be in the middle, and I kind of did it a little different. Like I said, I had her flying geese, and I cut them in half and used them for cornerstones, and I only had this much of the green, so I used it on the 2 sides, and then the coordinating, which this is also going to be the back, that is the borders, top and bottom. But anyway, I wanted to show you my ironing mat, and this is my mom's trusty iron, which it's not been plugged in 20 years, in 15 years. She ironed everything. That's what we did during the day, was she had the ironing board out and we were ironing. But I picked this up from Angie and I's friend Nanny and Poppy's place. Nobody knew what it was, and I got it for $2. And it actually is a Stinson super sealer, which it's used for aircraft and auto fiberglass applications, but it's a hot iron, and when you're stretching fiberglass you just run that down. But it also can be used as a sewing iron or a tailor's iron, just for like collars and cuffs. This is great, and it's all aluminum. And I had a couple of repairs to fix on the cord, and I have done that. So Tammy, the electrician, fixed the cord, and works like a charm. And for all these small little details, if you're quilting, it's a godsend. So here we go with the irons. And now they're all laid flat. My seams are pressed flat, and they are ready to be added to the square. And for just this little bit, this little mat, there's no sense in bringing out the big ironing board and the big iron. Most times I just use the little Stinsons, and now all I've got to do is sew this one on to the block itself, and make sure you line up all your corners. And it's on the wrong way. I can see already it goes this way. And I pin it and I sew it in one long strip, and then we're off to the next piece. And I can do both of them at the sewing machine. But yeah, I found one of my dad's hankies, and I wanted to show you what the difference is. I've been using a little bit of spray starch. Things just, the material is not as hardy as it used to be. But the Niagara, and this is so expensive. I remember my mom paying like 39 cents for a can of spray starch. But this is just a lightweight. But after you wash cotton, and especially when you're making intricate cuts, because there's so much math with the quilt, you just give this a light spray and hit it with the iron, and it's like night and day. And to show you, this is one of the pieces of muslin that I'm using, and it is just, I washed it and it is a wrinkled mess, so I have to iron each piece before I can place it. And this is the other sashing, and I just sprayed it and ironed it, and it looks like a brand new piece of material, but it was wrinkled just like that. So that's the tip for the day. And Angie, I hope your grandkids haven't drove you crazy. Love you. Bye. Well, I've came home to start finishing this quilt, and somebody has taken over my sewing chair. And I've got all 3 squares finished with their sashing. Now it will just be to sew them together, and then I will put the white border on. And yes, my table is a wreck. Utter chaos here also. Okay, boys and girls, we're on the home stretch. I'm not going to let you see me. I'm having a bad hair day. But anyway, I decided to miter these corners. I've got the border on, and the quilt top is almost finished. And this is my first miter corner, which turned out pretty good, and I'm happy with it for now. And what I did was you put your borders on and you leave a tail, and you do not stitch all the way to the end. You leave the 1/4 of an inch, and I put my short pieces on first and left my tail, and I've got this sewn on now. So then you have this cross, and I will flip it over, and you find your corner, and you actually have to try to fold it in half right here. So that your two pieces line up together. And it comes together like that. And when you fold your piece in half, your square, you draw a line and you sew down that line, and then when you open it up, that's when you have your corner. It's not that hard, and I'm glad I did it. I learned something new today. So next will be the quilt sandwich. Hey Angie, I know you're resting after you had your grandkids go home, and I'm glad Connie's okay. I've talked to your mom today, or at least she's messaged me. It's a wonder I got anything done today. The cat has been under my feet and in my sewing chair, and I had to throw him off my quilt batting earlier. But we accomplished a little bit, so check it out. Okay, I've got my mitered corners finished, and they turned out great. I've got my sandwich, and I was a little short on my batting, so I had to add a piece. But you have to make sure you've got it bigger than your top piece. And then that's my background fabric. And I decided not to try the envelope routine because this batting sticks to everything, including the cat. He is usually on it. That's another tutorial I have to watch, but when I'm finished quilting the top, then I'll cut this back to my finished edge, and then this piece will get ironed and folded at a 1/4 of an inch, and then roll on over onto my top piece. So it's almost like a cheater's binding. And then I will zigzag around the whole thing in red. I got the middle done without messing anything up. I have to change my thread out. I've got green right now, and you can see my Marge only does one stitch besides zigzag. So I've quilted all the green and the green center and the green on the side, but I'm not gonna mess with the stars. I would rather hand quilt those in red, but this is a tutorial project that the girls at the senior center gave me. I know was to give me practice. So this one will be for sale in, this table runner ended up being 18 inches wide and 55 inches long. So it will be for sale in the craft sale at the senior center. So I have to change my thread, but it's late, so I'm gonna have to booby trap so the cat doesn't lay on it at bedtime. Somebody is ready for bed. Say goodnight, Cody. Hi, Angie. This has been a wrestling match. The girls at the senior said I'm doing good, but me and Marge are exhausted. And the cat, every time I turn around, he's up on my leaning platform on top of the quilt, and I'm trying to pull it. So we're doing the last stitches of Tammy's first quilt.